Hey everyone, hope you're doing well out there. This is Nick. Got another video for you today. We're going to talk about field dynamics from antenna arrays. Today we're going to do some science. Hope everybody likes science. We're going to start out with my Etsy. One of my customers, he made this video, and a lot of my friends, they had trouble comprehending what's actually taking place in this video. So we have a standard Wi-Fi router. He's using his electric EMF detector. It'll read red when the levels are too high, dangerous to human, plants, and animal health. And it'll read blue when it's reading like the ambient radiation field from the planet, or when it's acceptable safety limits. So what are we looking at here? The Wi-Fi router just on its own is producing dangerous levels of electromagnetic frequency radiation, and when you drape my silver circlet, specially designed, over the router, the numbers drop. So that's what we're going to be breaking down for everyone today. We're going to start out with a little background. We're at Physics World, superconductivity research update from 2002. Silver surface boosts superconductivity. So what this is talking about is extremely thin films of silver, in some cases only one molecule wide, can produce amazing effects both for shielding, absorption, and radiation, and as well as increasing the superconductivity of other materials. So what does that mean? When you have a superconductor, radiation or electricity or energy, what have you, will move along that surface or that wire more easily with less impedance. And that's going to be an important aspect of why we use the silver today. We're at another publication here, non-toxic silver coating for medical implants, resists and kills bacteria. So it already is well known in the medical literature to be antibacterial, as well as they use silver coatings on medical implants to prevent them from being rejected by the body, because in the medical literature they call pure silver, fine silver, 999 purity, biologically conducive. So our body works well with it. It just assists our body's normal activities. Okay, so now we're getting into antenna dynamics. Word of the day here is physics of fractality. So we see that this toroidal field, a torus donut-shaped field, is being utilized or generated by this vertical antenna, which we're all hopefully familiar with. Consequently, or coincidentally, our human heart also produces the very same field. These guys in the medical literature determined that the heart field extends far beyond our own body, and they measured it with very sensitive magnetometers. And okay, so now we're looking at the Earth's magnetic field. There's an invisible north and south pole that we've all been taught in school, and it's creating this toroidal field, donut-shaped field. And so we're talking about the physics of fractality, the word of the day. And so fractal is when you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in, and it looks the same, kind of like a hologram, as above, so below. That's what they say in the religious text. Excuse me. In the religious text. So we can see that these field dynamics are very applicable to various aspects of our existence, biology, electrodynamics. Okay, so now we're at just a diagram of how a Wi-Fi router works. So a Wi-Fi router, just like a human body, is what they call like a point source transmission. So the transmission starts at the point of the origination, and then it extends beyond the point of origin, and that's called point source. So this is like a Wi-Fi signal bubble, just a conceptual model to help us come to terms with what we're talking about today in the subject matter. Okay, so this is just a Wi-Fi diagram of different types of obstructions. So if you have your Wi-Fi router and there's a metal filing cabinet or even a mirror, very interesting, right? It's well known that it will absorb, reflect, and reduce the signal. So you'll have these dead spots in your house. And a lot of people will be like, well, why is there a dead spot here? And it's because there's some form of shielding or absorption taking place. And these are the dynamics that I take advantage of in designing my specially designed EMF absorption jewelry. We're essentially creating these dead spots, okay? And then when we go back to here, there's a dead spot being created as soon as you drape the silver circlet over this Wi-Fi router. But it's not necessarily a dead spot. Like, you could still use the Wi-Fi, right? But something more is happening here because the electrical component is being removed from the electromagnetic radiation pollution. And so then it just becomes magnetic radiation at that point. And so the phone will still work with the Wi-Fi, but you will just remove that electrical, highly conductive and reactive electrical component from the waves itself, from the standing wave of the point source origin from the Wi-Fi router. And so that's another kind of a subtlety that we'll have to go through in another video. So let's move along here. So if you have your Wi-Fi router and it's not working well, a lot of the times it has to do with how you orient the antenna itself. And once again, if the antenna is pointing straight up, it forms this toroidal field, and when we want to use this Wi-Fi antenna array, we want to be somewhere inside of this field, or else we're in a dead zone. And so when we're using our phone, okay, we have the phone, and we're outside, say this antenna is not directly up and down, we're going to be creating these dead spots. And so the cell phone and technology and Bluetooth and everything like that is made to function within a certain parameter. So in this diagram, you know, it's showing us that the field stops here, but that's not true. The field perturbation that's occurring in space extends far beyond this, just like the human field that we were looking at. But the technology is made to only work within these frequency and power bands that are very, very dependent on the proximity. So the field is extending far beyond what we're being shown here. So for the purposes of our EMF absorption desires, we want to know how these field dynamics operate so that we can address them and mitigate them and render them harmless. So here's another interesting one that I pulled up for everyone today. These guys, they created this imaging software to actually physically view what the Wi-Fi looks like. And we can see here that there's an initial field perturbation, and the fields continue, and they slowly lose momentum or energy, right? The farther you get away, and then you leave the bubble of effectiveness, and then your signal will drop off. So here's another diagram. Various types of materials will either obstruct or allow the waves to pass through. Okay, and so now let's think about what we're looking at. Okay, when we put the silver circlet over here. Okay, so here's the Wi-Fi router. We put the silver circlet over it, and the magnetic component of these waves is still emanating, but we're removing the electrical component, from the standing wave, because silver is a superconductor. They use it to manufacture superconductors. So the electrical component of energy, quote unquote, perturbations occurring in the universe substrate, some people call that the ether, most notably Nikola Tesla, a famous scientist and inventor. So when we are looking at this field, the field is still there, but because we're putting the silver circlet, specially designed circlet, inside of this toroidal field being created and generated by the antenna, your phone will still work again, but the electrical component will be removed from it. And so what are we really looking at here in the video? Okay, you can imagine this is kind of this is when things get a little weird, but that's how the physics of these field dynamics works. Like like stellar jets, or these black supermassive black holes that produce this infinite energy. It just keeps coming. It just keeps coming forever, right? From our perspective. And so if we invert that dynamic, that's exactly what's occurring. Because the silver is getting in the way of these field perturbations, it's kind of like a drain. That's how I usually tell my clients. It's like a drain that never gets full, right? And this is getting into the high strangeness of field dynamics and material sciences now. So this is some real heavy stuff pretty much. So the drain never gets full, right, because of how this works. So when we have an original emanation, right, and say the silver circlet is far out here, we have the original emanation, and it wants to keep going, right, because it's a point source transmission. It wants to just keep going on its own. But because the silver circlet is in between the outer field and the inner field, all of the electrical component from the EMF pollution or the EMF wave is being sucked in, literally sucked in, like as if it was a drain, as if it was creating its own gravity, the silver circlet. But it's a gravity that only attracts electrical energy, and that's why they use it for superconductors, because when you put the coating of the silver, it directs the energy very specifically, and it wants to go that way, and that's what creates the superconductor, and that's what also that same quality is what is producing this effect when we take a reading of the EMF reader and a standard Wi-Fi router. So it's like a cup or a drain that never gets full. As soon as it comes into contact, it gets, and because of how this silver circlet is designed, it kind of gets trapped in like an eddy current. You could think of like an eddy current from like a boat, from the bow of a boat. It creates these perturbations. Let's see here. Yeah, you can see these perturbations. You see this? We'll go over this in another video too. So these perturbations are basically like waves occurring in the energy of the universe. And so the waves will continue, but without that electrical component. And it's the electrical component that the medical literature has identified as the extremely reactive component of the EMF pollution that damages our DNA. It's been found to reduce the biological activity in our intestines by killing the bacteria. This Wi-Fi router energy, the electrical component, has been found to render our sperm immotile, and even changing the way the sperm looks so that it doesn't function correctly. In women, it's been found to cause multifocal breast cancer. I have another video on this. It's also been found to cause lower fertility in women because of how the electrical component interacts with the lining of the fallopian tubes. And biology in general functions off of extremely delicate gradients of electric and magnetic field dynamics or polarities the biological electricity occurring in our bodies and in our brain especially, it's pretty much how our body works. It's like a kind of mechanical in that sense because of the bioelectricity. But the level of energy or intensity of our biological electricity is super low, barely detectable. So when you start shooting electromagnetic frequency waves at our biology, any part of our biology, including plants and animals, the energy coming from these types of cell phone towers and Wi-Fi towers and Bluetooth and stuff like that is magnitudes, several magnitudes stronger than what our body is used to in communicating, intercellular communication using biological electricity. So that's pretty much the main reason why we want to absorb, nullify, render inert all of this EMF pollution, because as it's traveling out, right, we're sitting here on the couch having fun. As this energy is traveling out constantly, it's hitting us and it's going through us, and it's hitting, our inside organs and our eyeballs. It's even been found to affect the way that we see through our corneas and stuff like that. So just some quick tips. You don't want to use your phone. You want to keep your phone in Wi-Fi unless you are specifically using it, and then when you're done using it, you want to put it back into airplane mode, and you want to kind of treat it like a dumb phone. If you can utilize your discipline and your conscious intent by keeping your phone in an airplane mode most of the time, you will actually be far better off than millions of people on this planet who are experiencing all kinds of chronic illnesses, and they're not aware of how those illnesses are being created by this EMF pollution, because the Western scientific mindset is like literally decades behind, and they're really slow, so that's why I'm here and trying to help people out. So the energy coming from all this stuff, if we treat our phone like a dumb phone, and if we just use our computer for all the stuff that we want to do, that would be a lot better. And if we only want to use a computer that is physically wired to the Ethernet cable and then to the router itself, we don't want to use any Wi-Fi or Bluetooth technology, because our biology, like we said earlier, is very sensitive, and it contributes to hair loss, anxiety, depression, insomnia, infertility. The list is rather extensive. You can find more information on my other YouTube channel, LifeProductsDirect, if you're interested. So I hope this clears up what we're seeing in these videos for everybody today. You just want to make sure to really take a little time and study this type of field dynamics, because nobody ever tells us about it, and it's super important because it's really wreaking havoc on our people. But it's also very easy to mitigate all this stuff if you actually know what's happening, and the physics of fractality, and how they interact with field dynamics and electrosensitivity in the human organism, as well as plants and animals. So I hope everybody's doing well out there. Shoot me some questions. If you have any questions, check out the website, LifeProductsDirect.com, for more information, or head up my Etsy and check out the reviews. And and there's a lot of medical and scientific literature on there on my website also, so you guys can check all that out for free. All right, well, see you in the next one. Hope everyone's doing well. See ya.